Are we on? Good. Good afternoon. My name is Christina Strassfield, and I'm the Executive Director of the Southampton Art Center. On behalf of our board and staff, we'd like to welcome you. I'm very excited with this exhibition, East End Collected 8. This is the 8th edition of this particular show, and the show was formulated by the wonderful artist, Patton Miller. And 2 years ago, absolutely, applause.
Thank you.
2 years ago, when I first became executive director, Patton was like, "Oh, do you want to help me with the installation?" I said, "Oh, of course. That's so much fun." And again, then we decided again to work on this together and curate it together, and it's been a wonderful experience knowing Patton for so many years. I know a lot of you have been here before, and you've already heard the origin story of East End Collected 8, but I see that there's a lot of people who have not been here. So I would like Patton to explain how East End Collected 8 started here at the Southampton Art Center.
Hi, everybody. Thank you for coming. It was 11 years ago that I got an invitation to go to a house in the village with the mayor and concerned citizens about what to do with the building after the parish moved to its new building in Watermill. And I think the concern was it could become a Chuck E. Cheese or something like that. And they asked me my opinion as I was the artist in the group. And they asked me my opinion, and I said, well, the idea had been floated to do an art center. And I said, well, in order to do an art center, you have to really be loved. So people, it's okay. Is it important? No, that's fine. So not to be kumbaya about it, but the proof is in the pudding, because all these 11 years later, we have a viable art center that is being strongly supported by the community. But back to the beginning, I had my opinions about how it could work, and a few months later they called up and said, well, do a show. So I did East End Collected, and we didn't even call it one because I thought it'd be a one and done thing. And it was very successful. Then we did, the next 3 years, we did 3 more, and then we went to a biannual program. And here we are.
And it's really exciting. I think Patton has chosen, over the years, including this year, we've chosen over 320 artists who've had their showcase here. And one of the rules is that you are not allowed to do it more than once. So we want to give artists a chance. So if you have not been in it yet, you have a good chance to be in it in 2 years' time. And believe me, a lot of people have come up to us, and we're very excited about thinking about what's going to happen in 2 years going forward.
Oh, I get to come back?
You do, absolutely.
Okay, thank you.
We want to keep it going. I do want to say also, I want to thank all of the artists, because each of the artists really we worked very closely with them. Pat and I each made a list of artists, and then we began to discuss each of the artists and see where we felt the work would all come together. And the work is all very different, as you can see when you're looking around the room. But we felt that the quality all had to be of the same level. And if the quality is all of the same level, it doesn't make a difference if you're doing a painting or prints or sculpture. The work can hold together. If it's not, it wouldn't hold together as an exhibition. So we're very proud that all of these artists were able to showcase such great talent that we have here. What we're going to do is we're going to have each artist talk for about 5 minutes about their work, and then we'll have some conversation, and we're going to then open it up to the audience for questions and answers. We're going to start. We have one artist who's not here yet, so when he comes in, we're going to boo him. Because these artists were on time like they were supposed to, and I so appreciate that. So we're going to start with Isabella Rupp, and I just want to say that I met Isabella when I was at Guildhall as the museum director, and she had entered the member show, and I was so fascinated with her work with glass, a medium that is not used that often. And I learned so much from Isabella, because I think what she does is she works, you see a lot of different work in glass, and a lot of it, just like in every medium, can be very kitschy. But she is breaking boundaries with the work that she does, and is so dedicated. And if you have a chance to speak with her about all of her innovations, you're going to really enjoy it. So, Isabella.
Thank you. Is this okay? You can
Yeah.
hear me. Okay, cool. I just want to thank Christina and Patton first for including me in this amazing exhibit with all of these talented artists at this beautiful center. It's really a privilege. And everybody, thank you for coming today. It really means a lot. You know, I never woke up one day and thought, I'm going to be an artist who works with glass. You know, it's a medium that found me, and it's led the way for 25 years. And when I started, I began working with salvaged window frames as my canvas. And I would cut factory glass and create mosaic collages with that glass, and then light boxes on the back for work that hung on walls. And then I started wanting to make dimensional objects to incorporate into the mosaics. And I went out to Pilchuck Glass School for the first time out in Washington, great school, among many. And the glass master, a German gentleman, Karl Ittig, makes these pristine, perfect vases and, you know, goblets and ornaments. And I'm like, I want to make curling waves and puffy clouds and, you know, sun rays that are dimensional and melt. And he was like, okay, you know, like, I've never used a torch for that. So it was really wonderful to start to use a tool for something totally different. And he and his assistants got into it. And after that, I saw that the mosaics wanted to kind of have a life of their own and be able to be their own size and their own shape and not be limited by the windows. And I also wanted to start melting the glass instead of it being hard-edged. So I started to learn how to fuse. And fusing is using a sophisticated oven that can get very hot, and you can really program it in detailed fashions. So when you work with a torch, it's called flame working. When you work with a kiln, it's called fusing, or that's the main term for it. So with fusing, I started to learn about the left and right brain of glass, because it's a science as well as an art. And this glass, I'm asking this brittle, hard form to become something else. I'm asking it to accept a new form. And in order for that to happen without it breaking, I need to understand what it's going through at different temperatures. And so part of my learning was mastering how do you program these kilns. Because you can plug and play and make very basic, like pizza fusing, which is what a lot of beginner glass people do. But to really be able to break out and do my own thing with it, I needed to master the rules. And then I could break them, and without the glass breaking. And so that's the direction I was heading in, which then led me to, well, I want to make my own glass. I don't want to just use factory glass. So bullseye glass is what I predominantly work with, and I used crushed glass powder and frit, which is like sand, up to pebbles, sheet glass, stringer that's like thin spaghetti. And I take all this factory glass and I use heat and time and gravity to create my own palettes, my own brush strokes and textures that I then begin with to create compositions. So where collage artists or sculptors may collect all kinds of things that are meaningful to them, I'm making many of those things, and then I begin from there. So the piece that you're seeing here is another rarely mixed combo of materials, glass and metals. And the reason they're not usually fused together is because they have different coefficiencies of expansion, and that's a fancy word for they expand at different rates, the COEs. So if you put them in a kiln together and you don't know what you're doing, they crack, or other things you don't want happen to them. So in the early 2000s, I started experimenting with this and have tested over time, and this is the first time I'm showing part of a series here at the center, which I'm excited to share. And Christina and Patton put it in the most perfect place, because glass for me is a metaphor for life. It's constantly changing. It's never static, just like all of us. And when it's in front of natural light, you can stand there all day and it looks different all day long. Just like each of us, we're changing every moment. Our minds are changing every moment. And the piece is 9 individual pieces that stand alone, but they work interdependently. And so the invitation is for any viewer to lean in and create your own amalgam of the images so that you're creating your own universe from each of these 9 individual parts. And it's an invitation, too, to kind of step out of the Art Center and think about the power of our minds and how our minds create our worlds. And I can change my mind at any time and change the world that I'm experiencing. So, yeah, thanks.
I think what she said is so true, because as we're walking through the galleries at different times of the day, it's just wonderful to just sit there and absorb the light and the changing feeling that you get when you're looking at it each time, which is really, truly wonderful. So that's very exciting. Next, we have Samuel Havens. My husband took a course with him at the church and said, this is an amazing young man, and you have to look into his work. And so I went and looked and found his work and began talking to a lot of people about what an amazing teacher he is, what an amazing artist he is. And so it's truly an honor to have you here in the exhibition, Sam.
Thank you, Christina, and thank you, Pat. It's an honor to be included in the show alongside so many other incredible artists. It's really an amazing opportunity for me. I haven't shown my work a lot in the past few years. I've gotten so wrapped up in printing for other people, working for other people, which is something that I really enjoy. Printmaking as a whole, printmaking and artist books are what I would consider to be my two main practices. And the way that they tie in together, it goes incredibly well, because printing allows you to reproduce a lot of works, and so I wind up with a stack of papers that's about this tall, and I can take all the prints that don't necessarily work and repurpose them, reformat them into artist books, using them as pages, covers. Printmaking, to me, it's very process-oriented, and anyone that knows me knows how process-oriented I am. All of my works, all of my projects, they take excruciating amounts of time, very, very long hours working, but it's something about that time and effort put into it that allows me to really connect with the piece, and that's why I enjoy the process of printmaking. It's a very collaborative effort between myself and the press, two parts coming together to work as one, the way that the print just rests on the paper. It's unlike any other medium. I didn't start off as a printmaker. I actually began my career in 3D animation and 3D modeling. I figured that's where I could get a job. That's what I could get a job doing. And so when I was in college, that's what I was learning. And I took a printmaking class. A friend of mine said, Sam, I think you'd really enjoy this. And so I was like, oh, maybe I'll give it a try. I'll see how it goes. And I took it, and I hated it. It was awful. It was so much work. There was so much to learn, so many different processes. I was in the Fine Arts Building until 2 in the morning every day, wake back up in 5 hours, go to class. It was draining me. I was like, oh my God, why did I do this to myself? So I'm getting ready for the second semester. I'm like, I'm not doing printmaking again. I'm so done with this. It's too much work. Who likes this? Why am I going to spend all this time to reproduce something that I can do in this drawing in 5 minutes? Not only that, if I'm printing it, I have to do it all backwards. It's like, it just doesn't make sense. So I'm filling out my pre-registration for the following semester, and my professor comes up behind me, and she says, Sam, well, let me just put printmaking 2 as your #1 choice. And I'm like, oh my God. I waited until the very last minute to put my pre-registration in, and so I have no choice. I'm like, I guess this is it. I guess I have to do another semester of this. And so I came into class that first day of the second semester, and that was when everything clicked for me. She showed me the process of using my digital background, incorporating it into the traditional process of printmaking, and everything clicked for me. The two sides came together, and she said, Sam, you just have to have 4 projects by the end of the semester, 4 prints. They can be whatever you want. You can do whatever you want with them. Take this time, experiment, create, play around, enjoy the process. And so having that ability to just really work and dive into the process, find the different ways of working with it, everything that's possible through it. The beautiful thing about printmaking is that you have a plate. And with that plate, the possibilities are endless. You can ink it up with this color. You can ink it up with another color. You can layer them together. I've cut some of my plates up. I have a print over there that's developed off of 5 plates. It started off as 1. I cut it into 5 individual sections, inked them each up differently, and layered them together. And it allows you to play around with the composition, and it's so inspiring. There's nothing quite like the feeling of having to go through the press and you pull the paper off, and it's magical. There's something about it that's so, so beautiful. And anyone that hasn't had the opportunity to print anywhere, no matter any process, monotypes, relief printing, etchings, there's something so incredible about just pulling the paper off and seeing something that you've created. And since it is a backwards image, when you print it, it's always a mirror image of itself. When you see it for the first time, you may not even recognize it. The entire time that you were working on it, it was flipped. And so you see it for the first time with a fresh set of eyes. And it's an incredible, incredible feeling. That process is what really drew me to printmaking. And through printmaking, I found myself very intrigued in artist books. Prints are a two-dimensional work. It hangs on the wall. An artist book is something that you interact with on a physical plane. The way that you flip through the pages, the way that you interact with the book, it changes how each person is going to experience it. You can start to think about, does a book need to be a traditional codex? The work that I have on display here is an artist book that's in the form of an envelope with little individual sheets. They're not bound in any manner, but they hold themselves together as a cohesive work, and it just changes the way, it challenges, what can a book be? And works on paper for me and printmaking, artist books, and I love it. That's amazing.
How nice.
Congratulations, that's wonderful. So all works are for sale in the exhibition, so again, this is truly wonderful. That's very, very exciting, so congratulations, Sam.
I'm here for a reason. Georgia Suter is the artist. If you go out on the ramp, she's hard on the left there. And I've known her work now for 2 or 3 years, and I think she's a refreshing young artist and bold in her compositions, and I'm glad that you're in the show, Georgia.
Thank you, Patton and Christina. Yeah, just wanted to start off by saying thank you to both of you. This has been such a cool experience, and I've made so many new friends and so many new artist friends, and it's been really special to also show my work alongside all of these people in such a cool building. So I'm a painter, and I make paintings mostly about relationships, human relationships, and I like to paint people kind of as little silhouettes to sort of take away characteristics so that the focus of the painting becomes more about the dynamic of the relational dynamic between the two people or between a group of people. And the themes and sort of what I'm most interested in when I'm painting are sort of themes of connection. So what does it look like to feel connected or disconnected? What does it look like to feel alone or together? And then also the theme of sort of sense of belonging. So what does it look like to feel like you're part of a community, part of a group, or sort of the sense of like losing a feeling of individuality and feeling more like you're of a fabric. So those are sort of the themes that I explore through painting. And my background, I'm from New York. I moved around a lot growing up. Both my parents are artists. My mom's a painter. My dad was a political illustrator for a long time and now does more sculpture. And I think that moving around a lot growing up is part of why I'm so interested in these themes of community. I think I did feel a bit of like a feeling of outsiderism, kind of on the outside looking in, which I think anyone who moves to a new place can experience. And so kind of exploring those ideas of how do you become part of a community when you're not from a community? How do you create roots when you don't have existing roots? How do you form like deep friendships when you don't have histories with people? All of those things sort of were ideas that would surface a lot for me and that never really left. So that's kind of what I like to explore when I'm painting. And I went to school for journalism. I actually didn't go to school for art, but I did minor in studio art, and then after graduating, took classes at the Art Students League in the city and started getting really more seriously into painting shortly after that and during the pandemic, and then started showing my work more, and here I am today.
I just want to say that there's some seats if anyone wants to come there's plenty of seats up front here. If anyone wants to take a seat, so you don't have to stand. It's up to you. The next person is Richard Moths. Again, when I was at Guildhall, Richard contacted me and was going to be doing his graduate work, and he was doing his graduate work, and said that he needed to have someone sort of do critiques with him, and would I be interested? And I was like totally overwhelmed, and I said, well, let me meet you first. and his passion for what he wanted to do and how he wanted to, go for his master's degree and learn more and do more and express himself in a different way really intrigued me. So it was really a great honor that we began to meet like on a monthly basis and I felt like it was a special time for me because we got to talk just about art and really engage on really serious topics about art instead of just, fluff topics. So it was really a wonderful experience. Richard's work is right over there, really very, very exciting. He's also, we were just talking in the North Fork Collective and in Boston. Richard.
Well, first, thank you for having me here. It's definitely an honor and a privilege and humbling to be on the walls of all these amazing artists, especially four sitting next to me. Like Christina said, I felt a need to expand my art practice early on. Self-taught, learned from books. I painted what I guess you could call, Rockwell-like images, taking photos of nephews and family and friends and painting landscapes, seascapes. The skies out here are incredible. But I got to a point where I was like, you know what? All I'm doing is recreating reality and what I see every day. And I wanted more, but I didn't really know what that was. And as Christina said, I needed to reach out, beyond, the bubble that is East Hampton. I'm from East Hampton. I live in East Hampton. I really needed to look further, and I didn't know where that was. So I was lucky enough to get into an MFA program, low residency, in Cambridge called Lesley University. And they really pushed us, especially me, to look more inward. What's important? What do I want to be making? How to create my own reality. I didn't know how to do that. I've been referred to as a knuckler when I paint, with the detail, the tiny little zero brush, trying to get everything perfect. And I didn't know how to break out of that. So I was pushed, and thanks to Christina as well, to use different medium, because I knew that if I used a brush and paint, that it had to be a certain way. And I didn't know how to do anything else. So I started using pastels. I started using, that one painting there with the woman on the beach is done on Yupo paper. Instead of using a brush, I used a hairdryer and a lot of water and oil. That way I couldn't use a brush, and it forced me not to be as detailed and to really look beyond what I had done before. I used pastels for memory. Like the Ford painting over there, the truck, Montauk, the cliffs, it's hard to beat that spot, but I wanted to recreate my own image of what I think it is and what I remember it could be. So that's just a combination of found photos, in-person sketches. I use a little bit of AI here and there. If I'm doing an underwater scene, I can't really take a photo underwater of a bird, so I can use AI for that. And then mix that, so now I'm using contemporary forms of design and technology. I'm using in-person sketches, I'm using memory, and I'm using hair dryers. So now I really feel like I'm on a path where there really is no limit, and it's endless based on what I can come up with. And now working in the commercial scene is now it becomes, throw the spaghetti on the wall, and what people seem to like and sticks, do more of it. And now I get the benefit of doing what I'm passionate about, something that I enjoy doing, and then I just do a series based on, how it responds to the public.
The guy that staggered in here late is Aurelio Torres, who's not only a great painter in his own right, but comes from a long lineage of painters. And take it away, Aurelio.
Is this on?
You just have to sit close.
Well, I was hoping to miss my slot.
You were first up.
Thanks.
I live in East Hampton. Been here for 25 years. When I got here, my goal was to paint. It's something I procrastinated for many years in my early, as a young man. I come from four artists in my family. I mean, my grandfather was a pretty well-known modernist, and my father was a figurative painter. When we lived in New York, that's why we moved to New York from Uruguay, but his specialty was figurative. And then my uncle, his brother, elder brother, was also a modernist abstract painter, lived between Barcelona and Uruguay. And after being in Europe, studying with my uncle, I went back to New York in the 90s, mid-90s, and I was priced out of studio spaces in New York. So I decided to come out here, and of course the light in the Hamptons is special. And in the mid-90s, it was different, of course, than it is now. There was a lot less people during the off-season. So I started to really cultivate my direction, my painting, and to paint out in the elements. Plein air was something I thought was very important. I do less of it now, but so I've been here a long time, and after procrastinating a long time in my life, I really decided to become an artist. And now there's not enough time to do everything I want to do, sculpture, painting, and I'm working on a series of panels that I incise. So that's my more abstract branch. And the two paintings that I have here today, I did these during the Second Gulf War, I think it was. It was Bush II. And they originated from a small photograph that was on the New York Times. And something was, the composition of the photograph was incredible, so I had to recreate it. And that was an outlet for me to process all the war that's been going on, and it's still going on. So that's why I gave Christina and Patton these paintings to select from this series, because I thought it's still like a relevant, subject. It's like we're constantly in some situation, some war. And I'm still working on these paintings. I'm still working on that subject. It's really important to me. So, and I'm also working a lot on sculpture, but that's it. Okay.
Oh, questions? Please, be honest. It's funny, I went to William Albertini's sculpture there thinking it was someone raising their hand. Yeah. But please, ask some questions of theirs. I have one question before we go to the audience. Raise your hand if you came from a family that were excited that you were going to be an artist. Really?
Sam, that's
I don't know.
You know, I thought Albert was raising his hand again. Is that really the case? All five of you came from families that said, we want you to be a lawyer, a doctor, in something else?
Well, they didn't tell me I had to be one, but there was a lot of pressure.
Pressure in what way?
Well, it's just, the family was all art. Everyone in the family was involved, because...
Oh, so they wanted you to be an artist?
Yeah.
Oh,
They would say, you're good, you got to work more, that's... And so I think for many years I tried to run away from that.
Huh. Because actually the question I asked is whose family... What did I ask? Yeah. Didn't. Now I'm confused.
Yeah, I actually, growing up with artist parents, I actually was fixated on not becoming an artist just because there was a lot of instability, and the idea of like working in an office actually seemed like the most exotic thing ever. Like a place where there's like routine and stability and like structure. And I did work in an office for a few years, and I actually still feel like it's really exotic compared to like what I was used to, because both my parents were working at home every day. I never heard about office life. But eventually I just felt like it was kind of in my blood, like I had to do it. And I stopped fighting that, and I kind of had to come into it on my own terms instead of like through my family. Does that make sense?
Makes sense to me.
And Richard, your family looked at you and thought you were nuts?
Pretty much. To sum it up, I work in finance, so I went academically the complete opposite direction early on. I work for Suffolk County, so it's about as stable as it gets. Civil service. But then about 10 years ago, 15 years ago, I was like, I have a knack for it. Some very influential artists in the area, helped push me along and said, this is something you should do. And then COVID happened, and there was a lot of free time. So then it was like, okay, now it's time for me. So at 42, I decided to go to school.
Wow, that's interesting. 42, that's no spring chicken. I applaud your courage, because a lot of people will just stay the course.
Absolutely, and I think that obviously you have the talent and it's there, but what I saw is that you had the passion, that it was within you, that you had to do it, and I think that's always very, very exciting to see. So clearly wonderful. How has everyone felt? You talked a little bit about a mentor. Have you had mentors in your careers that have helped you along? And I'm going to throw it out to everybody.
Yeah, I grew up with a dad who was a painter, but did not do his painting because it wouldn't support the family. So he did commercial artwork for a living. So I think that might have been a message sent, don't do this. So I majored in economics, which was so not me in college, like, oh my God, because it was liberal arts. And I ended up working in another industry for 4 decades. So writing was one of my ways of expressing. So I didn't start working with visual form tactily, because I worked in television, so I worked in visual form in another way, until I was in my early 30s. And I made work and sold it and commissioned, but I was always working to pay the mortgage, and trying to divide my life between glass and TV. And eventually started doing syndicated shows, which were great because we had summers off. We weren't paid, but it gave me a chunk of time. So if I saved enough money, I could take the summer and immerse. And so I just kept juggling the two. And I moved out here from Manhattan to have a studio because I wanted to have a torch and a kiln, which would be kind of tough in Manhattan, in a little, shoebox apartment. So this kept going, and I kept getting so much encouragement, and the work was out there, and people were collecting it. And in 2021, with the pandemic, this beautiful, cool glassmaster with a great name, Narcissus Qualiata, invited 9 of us to be part of an immersive critique group. And that, among many other signs, I think when the universe wants you to change, at least for me, I get shoved in every direction. And that, for me, was the invitation to leap, finally, and do it full time. And I did. So I was working with him with these 9 others, and what was cool about the pandemic was we were on video. Otherwise he just did this in his studio. So I got to meet these other amazing artists from around the world, and it was a 1.5 years of really deep diving into making and sharing and critiquing my work. And then he went on to teach, and he was one of the early pioneers of fused glass, because fused glass wasn't invented until the late 1970s by Bullseye. They invited 8 artists to come, and he was one of them, to figure out what to do with this now that it exists. So he then offered these classes that I got involved in, 6 courses over the course of 2.5 years. So it's kind of like designing my own doctoral program. And he's a cool guy. Like, he gets the, it's like he always hit my Achilles heel every time in a critique. You know, just was able to find the thing that I was hesitant with, and got more than just the technical making. So he's been an integral part of me just going for it, finally. Yeah. Yeah.
Anyone else?
Sure. I've had a couple of mentors that have completely changed the trajectory of my career. The very first one, I was a senior in high school, and I was an incredibly average student. And by a complete turn of events, I accidentally wound up in AP Studio Art, which I absolutely did not belong in. I think before that, the last time I even picked up a pencil to draw was maybe in 8th grade when we had to take fine arts. And I was a senior, I was like, it's just whatever, it's an art class, it'll probably be fun. And I went in and I really had no idea what I was doing. I was trying to draw with pencil. Everything was just going wrong for me. I was having a terrible time with it. And my teacher, Mrs. Dorsey Hanvey, she came over to me and she gave me a pen. And she said, Sam, have you ever cross-hatched anything before? And I said, I don't even know what that means. And she put it in my hand and she gave me a quick demonstration and it just clicked for me. And that was the point where she showed me that I could be an artist if that's something that I wanted to do. I'd never even considered it as a career path at that point. I'm not even sure I had planned on going to college. I really didn't have any aspirations for it through most of high school. She gave me the point to jump off of and showed me it was something that I could do. My second really incredible mentor was my printmaking professor. I went to school at SUNY Oneonta, just upstate. Incredible arts program up there. I can't say enough good things about it, but she inspired me. She showed me what was possible. She basically introduced me to printmaking and led me along the path to just really develop it. I owe her a lot. Most of what I know, most of what I incorporate into my teachings is the way that she taught me, the way that she led me down the path and developed it. I cannot give enough thanks to her. And my third mentor, the reason why I'm out here in Sag Harbor, is Dan Weldon, a name that I'm sure many of you are familiar with. When I was at SUNY Oneonta during my junior year, COVID happened. It shut everything down. I came home for spring break, and we just never went back up there. And so I was in the middle of really diving into these photosensitive printmaking plates. It was something that I really wanted to pursue, and I was passionate about it. I needed to find a way to keep doing this. I needed to find a way to keep using this. I didn't have a press at home. I didn't have any of the plates. I was researching and I came across the solar plate, and I hadn't heard of the solar plate before. When I was up at school, I was using a slightly different photosensitive printmaking plate. And I was like, well, you know, this guy looks like he's in Sag Harbor. That's not super far. I grew up in Eastport and I was living there at the time, and I was like, maybe I could save a couple dollars on shipping if I just go pick it up. And so I put it in order, and I get a call the next morning, and it's Dan on the phone, and he's saying, oh, come meet me at this estate sale in East Quogue. I'll hand off the plates. And I'm like, okay, all right. So I don't know what he looks like. I'm like, I guess so. He tells me he's wearing a blue jacket. Everybody seemed to be wearing a blue jacket that morning. I'm like, Dan? And finally met him, and he gives me the plates, and he says to me, oh, so you have a press at home? I said, well, no, I was going to probably print them with the back of a metal spoon. I would just put the paper on the plate and then put a lot of force down with my hand and rub it in. And we were walking up a flight of stairs. We were going up to the second floor, and I thought he was going to have a heart attack right there on the stairs. He was like, no. You're coming out to my studio. You're using my press. And he really took me under his wing, and he allowed me to come out, and I worked with him for about 2 years, and he introduced me to the church in Sag Harbor, Eric Nippel-Gornick, where I currently work and where I've landed. And without him and his experience and knowledge and just understanding to really embrace me as his assistant and make me a part of his process, I wouldn't be here without him. So.
I strongly recommend everyone to see Sam's work, which is over here in this corner. There are many small drawings that you do those on site, right? You pull up
Some of them are on site, some of them are from drawings, and some of them don't exist at all. Some of them are just straight pen to paper, no reference, just...
It's a wonderful collection of drawings. Really, go look at them, take the time.
Thank you, Pat.
So, sure. I was GM and a tennis instructor at East Hampton Indoor Tennis for about 15 years. There's some familiar faces out there. And while I was there, I used to play tennis with this gentleman, Philippe de Montebello. And I didn't know who Philippe was. I knew who he was. He was just a really nice man who came in his blazer and we played tennis like twice a week. Then one day, he says, I want you to visit me at work. I'm like, cool, where's that? He's like, I work at the Met. I'm like, okay. So again, I didn't know. I was just doing some drawing. I really hadn't really done a whole lot of artwork at that point. So I go visit him at the Met, and it turns out that he runs it. And then he was going to open a gallery in Egypt, I think is what he was talking about. I'm like, okay, so that's who I'm talking to. So we were talking art. I ended up showing him some drawings I did, and he's like, wow, he's like, you need to do this. So then I found out, realized who he was, and I was like, I guess I need to do this. So I started doing more, started painting. Then I started talking to Eric Fischel, who I wouldn't be sitting here today if it wasn't for Eric. Eric and Ralph Gibson were hanging out one day, and we're talking, and I showed them some, photos and artwork, and like, wow, you need to do more of this. So at that point, I was like, you know what, it's time for me to do something else. And that's when I moved away from, the 60-hour work week and started looking for a way to have time to do something else. And then from there, it was, meeting people like Christina, to help push me in a different direction and take bits and pieces from, everybody I met along the way.
So did Philippe de Montebello, how did he say your name?
I wish I could speak like Philippe. Talk about the best voice ever.
The best voice ever.
And an amazing human being.
Wonderful. Good. Did Georgia?
Yeah, I've actually found a lot of mentorship through other artist friends who have been sort of kind to just give me feedback on my work, but also just hearing their stories of like perseverance and how they've had the ups and downs and kind of continue to work through those. And because I think it's so easy as an artist to feel like when you're alone in your studio, just like dabbling with your medium, to feel like, am I crazy? Like, is this the right path? To have those moments of doubt, but knowing other artists that you can connect with and like share with, it really makes a difference because you feel a sense of community and also just feeling that you're not alone in like working through certain things. So yeah, having like the artist community has made a big difference.
That's a reoccurring theme in these talks is the importance of being in a community that prizes you as an artist and not be thought of as a kook. So that's a love letter to all of you, by the way. Thank you.
Aurelio, do you want to mention anyone in particular as a mentor?
I guess my uncle, who I learned a lot, so it was brief. It was only 2 years of like intense painting, but that really made I soaked up a lot of knowledge, and he taught me the school that my grandfather was always teaching, and my grandfather had what they call a atelier, in Uruguay after his career in Europe. He settled back in Uruguay and started this atelier, and it really influenced a lot of artists who came out of Uruguay. I mean, it was probably under 100 artists, but there were a lot of people he directed, and so I learned that school of painting from my uncle. So that short time I had with him was extremely powerful, and I still remember a lot of the lessons. I kept a lot of the drawings that I would do with him, and where I would jot down notes on the important things, things to look out for. So.
Questions from the audience? Sure.
Did you
I heard. You know what happened? Christina. Well, Christina was able to squeeze in a studio visit the day before I was leaving for England for a month. And my wonderful husband, who is an amazing artist, he makes all of the frames for my work. And he had just thrown something together for me to have in my studio so that I could look at work while I make it, because I work flat on a table, right? Well, thank you. So Christina had come to the studio and really loved the layout of the work, you know, the way I had positioned the pieces. And so cool, I was leaving the next day on this trip, and we went with that base, but it wasn't made for those pieces. So after the fall, and fortunately nothing broke, which is great, Steve then made a whole new frame specifically for the pieces. So that's what you'll see out there now.
It was the scariest sound ever. All of, for the staff, we were all, oh my gosh, like what has happened? We were very nervous, so we were relieved when nothing happened to the piece.
Well made that it didn't break, I must say. I was very happy to hear that. It stayed intact.
Don't be shy. Any other questions? No? Please.
I'm curious to know if any of you have a cohort of fellow artists that you meet with for feedback, for quick groups, to expand on new ideas.
Anybody?
The only group that I regularly see is from my MFA program. We have like an online crit. But otherwise, in person, you know, it's occasionally the friend here or there, but nothing on the regular.
I recently started a series on portraits. Christina, you've seen that.
Yes.
And that the idea is portraits of artists in Long Island, out in eastern Long Island. So that's my way of starting to meet other artists out here. And it's one-on-one, but I'm starting to make a lot of friends, so it's great.
Wonderful work.
Yeah.
Really wonderful work. Setha.
I haven't formulated a question, but I am absolutely fascinated that so many of you had parents who were artists. And in some cases, it sounds like it can turn you away from art or make you anxious if you want to do art. I don't know, can you say anything more about growing up, having parents? It seemed to me like such a gift to have had parents who were artists, and yet I'm picking up very different things.
Seth, it's interesting that you said that. I want the artist to speak, but I have to say, in all the years that I've known, there's so many artists who their parents were artists, and they totally rejected it for a long time, and then finally the calling within them brought them forward. But a lot of artists were like, no, this is not the life I want to live, for economic reasons, for other reasons as well. They just felt like, that's not the life I want. But a lot, but then a lot do go back.
But you see,
Interesting. I don't know why.
No, it isn't interesting.
Seems like I would have loved to have been in that kind of environment.
but you guys went about it all wrong. Now, the way to have done it correctly was to show so little promise that when you said, I'd like to go to art school, they said, yes. See, that's the right way. That's what I did.
I'm just wondering what advice would you give a young artist who knows that's all they want to be, that's all they really care to be, no matter what medium they're doing? What advice would you give them to sort of, I don't know, end of the question.
Marry a rich woman.
How fortuitous it was that you just encountered these wonderful people that helped you. So if you really want to throw your net out there and meet these people, is there an anonymous meeting for how would you network if you were a young person and that's all you wanted to do?
Well, I could talk from personal experience, is that I didn't know anything about the art world. I didn't know who De Montebello was. So I had no idea what I was doing. And I knew I needed to do something, so all I did was start putting on shows, inviting people. The local East Hampton High School, I did a show for students and alumni, getting people together. And that, for me, I joined the Town Arts Council, the Artists Alliance. It's just get yourself out there. And then if I was younger and I was starting again, I would say, and I actually was given this advice, is you're probably going to need a job. Make sure that your job aligns with what your art is doing, so that your job inspires your art. So whatever, it doesn't matter what it is, but as long as the job's inspiring your art, you're always making art.
That's very good advice. Yeah.
I actually have an opinion about this. No one's ever asked me my opinion on anything, but I would recommend that young artists get together as a group, like 5, maybe 6, whatever, and put on their own shows and invite everybody they can and create a happening. And then maybe, if they're lucky, people will notice, and then people in the business will notice. You're welcome.
I think it's important to really get your work out there, so I would
Yeah.
agree with Patton, and I always encourage artists to show in as many group shows as you can. So many times I've included artists that I've seen, whether it was the member show or other shows that you go to, online, post your work online. Have a website, though. Don't say, go to my Instagram account. Have your own website. Have your artist statement. Put everything that you can into that, and invest a little time, invest a little, if you have to invest a little bit of money, that is money well spent. Because as a curator, I don't want to be told, go look at my Instagram. You know, if I want to follow your Instagram, I will. But I'm not going to like scroll through your Instagram to find, if you have like 10 different series, to find works that really work. That doesn't work for me at all. So, and I think it doesn't work for a lot of curators. So that would be my one advice. But group shows are really important so that you can see people's work. Get it out there. Really get it out there. You know, there's so many great opportunities here on the East End. Southampton, East Hampton, you know, all over Bridgehampton. There's a Women's Art Center. There's just a lot of different things. Go out there. Introduce yourself. You know, years ago you'd have to drop off slides. Now you're like, you can say, here's my website, take a look, you know. Printed cards, though, are very good. I really believe in that as well. Have a business card so the person doesn't have to like scroll for it. Like, you know, okay, I have your business card. I can know what your website is. I'll go back 5 days later for me, you know, a week later for me, and look at it. So I think that's an important aspect going forward.
I was gonna say, we need more and more spaces, everyone. I know Sam and Gloria, we were all talking about, right? We want to have a print show. We can't figure out how we can have a print show. So it's really wonderful that there are spaces where we can do things, and we could just use more and more, especially those of us who are young, maybe not in age, but maybe in terms of our artwork. There are lots of us who would create even more community if we could find places to show it.
And it's not easy. It's not easy. That's absolutely. I want to say that this is a wonderful intergenerational show. So I guess the youngest artist is about 30. You guys are probably the youngest, 30, but the
Majority
oldest
of-
is mid-80s. So it's really a wonderful opportunity, and I think that's really important. You know, art can be created, you know, every stage of your life, and to let that flow is so important. We are going to be having one last panel on 4-5, and that is going to be with Brendan Johnson, Sutton Lynch, Nishan Kazazian, Alan Wexler, and Susan Zeisis. I do want to say that Amy Zerner was supposed to be here today, but unfortunately she was ill, so she could not make it. So again, please take a look. Work is for sale. Encourage people to come. The show is going to be on for another month, so please enjoy. Thank you so much for coming.
Thank you, everybody.